The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi there, and welcome to the first in the series of LogicMonitor's World's Shortest Webinars. This one will focus on NetApp monitoring and how to set it up and be running in minutes. Just while we wait for a few more people to jump on the webinar, a bit of background. My name is Steve Francis. I'm one of the founders and the CEO of LogicMonitor.com. So I think we've got all the people on that look like they're joining. We've got a good turnout, so let's see how easy it is to configure NetApp monitoring with LogicMonitor. Okay, so one of the first questions we always get is, you're a hosted system, how do you collect my data without me opening up my firewalls? So here's a quick overview of how we do that. Basically, we don't need any firewall changes, no security changes on your side. All that the system has to do is you download a small Java application that runs inside the firewall. It only makes an outgoing SSL connection. Everything's encrypted and everything's outgoing. There's no listening sockets on the Java process. It pulls down its configuration from the central server, and that configuration tells it to use WMI or SNMP or NTP or JDBC to query the devices internally. Then it posts the results back over SSL to the LogicMonitor servers, which then store the data, query it, trigger alerts, escalate, and so forth. So let's have a quick look at how we would do that with a NetApp. So I'm going to add a new NetApp device from scratch. Creating a new NetApp, file2.core.den. That's all you need to do is put in the IP address or DNS name. LogicMonitor will do everything else. We're going to change the display name just to demonstrate that, put it in a group, and submit. So if we look at this, we now see file2. We don't know anything about it yet. For this to work, this NetApp has to be running SNMP. We've configured that into LogicMonitor previously. We have set up an agent previously, and we have enabled API access for LogicMonitor. That's just defined globally, though. You do that once, set your global properties. So the SNMP community, the NetApp credentials for the API access, they're all inherited. You can override them on a group or a host level. It does take about a minute or so for the LogicMonitor to discover everything about this host. Okay, we've discovered it's a NetApp and a variety of things about it already, but while we're waiting for the rest of the things to be complete, we can go look at an existing NetApp that we've been monitoring a bit longer. A variety of data that's displayed here, but I'll just give you a quick example of how you could use LogicMonitor if perchance you got an alert. Let me slide this across so you get a bit more view. If you saw this CPU usage and you were alarmed by it, you wanted to know what was going on, what caused that. That's typically a hard problem to solve in many NetApp environments. With LogicMonitor, it's very simple. Okay, so you see there's a spike in CPU usage, corresponding increase in disk activity. There should also be a corresponding increase in network throughput, hopefully. Yes, there is. All right, so we saw increase in CPU load caused by disk activity, caused by traffic coming in and out of the filer. Typically, that's hard to isolate as to which volume is doing it. With LogicMonitor, it's very simple. If we look at our volume performance data source, we see all the physical aggregates that have been discovered on this filer. On our data aggregate, we see all the volumes that are on that aggregate. If we expand the automatically generated overview graph, you can see that at the time of the CPU spike, which is 230, we can see that there was a corresponding spike in the total operations on this aggregate. If we look at the breakdowns by the individual volumes, we can see that this spike was the app stage volume that caused the spike. So now we scroll down and look at the app stage volume. There's the spike. We go up to 5,000 operations per second. They're all of other type. So the question now is, did this impact my volume's performance or other volume on the same aggregate's performance? So looking at the latency graph, we can see that in general, no, there was a spike in writes, in the write latency at this time. So now a question would be, how many writes were going on, and did this affect other volumes? And is this typical? So we could zoom out to a different time frame and see, it's not typical. Usually this writes are very fast, except for the occasional this one spike. And reads are also very fast. So we go back to this graph. we can see if we filter away the other information, the other file operations, directory operations, just to look at reads and writes. Okay, so we can see there was in fact a spike of write operations at that time. So there were 239 write operations per second. So that's why there was a bit of a jump in latency on that volume. So now the next question is, did that affect other volumes? More specifically, did it affect our production volumes? So if we look at, for instance, the database production volume at the same time, operations per second is fairly consistent. Latency is very good, not affected at all. A very trivial spike in writes from 3 to 4 milliseconds, and a trivial spike in reads at the same time from 8 to 9 milliseconds. So no problems with that. So now we can safely say that LogicMonitor has informed us that despite our spike in the CPU, we don't have any issues. One other thing, just quickly look at the disk performance on the data aggregate. LogicMonitor will have discovered all the physical disks in this aggregate, and we can look, again, there's an automatic overview graph. We can see the utilization, how busy the individual disks are, and whether we need to rebalance them. At the moment, things look pretty good. So let's go back to that NetApp we added before. We've done no work on it except define it, and there it is. All the same information has been added. So now all the volumes have been detected. They're being monitored for performance, interfaces, individual CPUs, the snapshots. If this NetApp was involved in a snap mirror, replication lag would be charted and alerted. So basically everything you need to know to monitor in a NetApp is predefined. We do have a few questions that have come up in the short time, but that's one question is this just a NetApp monitoring tool? I think you can see here we have a variety of other devices. We have web servers, load balancers, routers. We can look at all them in a different webinar, but no, we're not just a NetApp monitoring tool. We cover the complete infrastructure. Another question, if we have NetApp's DFM, why would we want LogicMonitor? Good question. You may not need LogicMonitor. NetApp DFM, or Operations Manager, is a great tool for managing the configuration of a large variety of NetApps. We don't do configuration management at all. We just do monitoring. However, that being said, monitoring with LogicMonitor is a lot easier than with DFM. With DFM, you have to specifically tell it what to monitor and when. LogicMonitor, everything's just monitored by default out of the box, no configuration needed. There's already alerts set on everything. If anything goes wrong, shelf electronic failures, temperature sensors, power supply failures, fan failures, latency issues, volumes starting to fill up, you'll know about it. And of course, the other factor, which relates back to the previous question, LogicMonitor isn't just a NetApp monitoring system. It monitors your entire infrastructure. So if you want to see if my volume latency is increasing, is that affecting my database response time, you can answer that quite simply with LogicMonitor. But we'll go into that in another webinar. And so we know your time is valuable, so that is it for the LogicMonitor World's Shortest Webinar. A few key takeaways. Yes, it really is that quick and easy. You add a host, it's fully monitored. There's not much to it. Given that we are a hosted system, getting from 0 to the point where you can add a host takes about 5 minutes, because you do have to install the Java application and give it its credentials, and then enter your SNMP and API accesses keys. But that's really it. So there is everything you want in performance and availability monitoring, and it's done automatically. Can save you a lot of time. It is not just for NetApp. The pricing is as low as $300 per month, which is for the full monitoring product. But do feel free to call us if there's information there that you don't see answered, or check us or send us an email, sales@logicmonitor.com. And lastly, any of you that see this webinar that are interested in an extended free trial, do reference this this code WNA022, and that'll let whoever you're dealing with on the sales side know that you've seen this webinar, you're a qualified prospect, and we'd like to work with you. Thank you very much.